Okay. Are we live?
We might be live. If you guys are there, thanks for joining us tonight.
I love this new system that we've got because there's always like 8 seconds of just okay, I think we are live.
Yay.
All right. How's it going, everybody? So just want to let you guys know right off. First of all, how are you guys? We're so happy to have you. We're really excited about tonight's live stream. We are going to do things really differently tonight. Differently? Is that a word? Yeah. All right. We'll accept it. We're going to do things really differently tonight because we just want to kind of bang out telling you guys about our situation, what our plans are, how our plans have changed. So for like the next 15 minutes, we're just going to explain what's going on. And then after that, we'll open up the floor to questions.
And some shout-outs.
Shout-outs. Thanking super chats, doing all of that stuff. So,
and also as a side note, all of our super chat and PayPal donations tonight are going to be going towards a nonprofit NGO called Direct Relief, and they supply PPE to underserved communities around the world. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but let's jump into the coronavirus and how it has affected us.
Coronavirus! Wow. It's a big deal. You guys might not have heard of it. It's this virus. It's kind of, people are getting infected. So anyway, it has become a very big thing here in Panama. So we'll just kind of jump right into it. The response in Panama by the government has been very aggressive in putting through, what do they call them?
Restrictions?
Well, restrictions, yeah, just generally all kinds of different rules and laws, keeping people, behaving in ways that will help to, stem the spread of the virus. And so it's been very intense the last couple of days. The rules have changed almost in some way every single day for the last... feels like a week.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking about, we think the reason that Panama's being so aggressive is because their healthcare system is a lot more vulnerable than a lot of first world countries. And so if they can really stop the spike initially of all those infections when the hospitals aren't ready for it, then they can really help the country in the long term.
Well, yeah, and that's kind of the glass half full way of looking at it. The other way is if they do get a huge spike in people in the hospital, their whole health system is just gonna completely crumble, and so they need to really flatten the curve. Mm-hmm. It's extremely important that happens in places like Panama. Mm-hmm. And so basically starting today, mm-hmm. Everyone is only allowed to leave their homes for 2 hours a day. So that's everyone in the country of Panama mm-hmm. is able to leave their home for 2 hours a day to go grocery shopping or to buy medicine is basically that's the only reasons.
And you're assigned a certain slot based on the last number of your passport or Panama ID. And
yeah.
So we have, I think, 4 o'clock.
Yeah, my passport ends in an 8. So that means I've got from 7:30 in the morning till 9:30 in the morning where I'm allowed to be like out and about in the streets.
Mm-hmm. I've got a later one, so we've actually got a really good spectrum to be able to hit the morning and hit the afternoon. So we lucked out with that.
Yeah, so that's news. It was pretty, we were pretty worried about what that was going to mean for boat travel. Mm-hmm. We weren't sure if that was going to mean boats had to stay exactly where they were or what that was going to do. But we just found out today that boats are still going to be allowed to move. So they're considering as long as you're on your boat, then you are within your home. And so you're considered quarantined. So we're happy to hear about that because depending on how long this goes on for, we were hoping to do some cruising around here. Mm-hmm. But a little more on that later on. Mm-hmm. So yeah, there's been a lot of other restrictions. All non-essential businesses have been closed completely. Mm-hmm. And so anything that doesn't fall under an essential business that the government considers to be essential has been forcibly closed. Mm-hmm. Our diesel engine air filter, I recently was doing some maintenance on the engine, and it had been destroyed.
Sucked out.
It had imploded. And so we needed a new air filter. And I contacted all the right people, the logistics people here in Panama and in the States, and they all said we're still operating. That was last week. Feels like last year. And I got the new air filter shipped to Panama, and it's in transit to Panama City, and we just found out today that the air mailer that we used in Panama was forced to shut down because Air Panama, the actual flights that go from Panama to Bocas del Toro, quit running. And so that happened just today as well. So we are not going to be getting our air filter. Mm-hmm. We're going to have to try to jerry-rig something, which should make for entertaining YouTube video.
Yep. And just to kind of backtrack a little bit. So the last episode that we had was us getting out of the boatyard. Woo! Getting ready to cross that Pacific. But once we got out of the boatyard, coronavirus restrictions and regulations were just starting to trickle out. And so a lot of the islands were shutting down because they're really remote and they want to restrict travel from their own little homogenous communities.
Yeah, so like the Sandblast,
they were closed.
the Gunayala. I'm bad at the indigenous names. They shut it down. They just don't let people in or out.
Yep. And then there's another marina close by here, and they actually are self-quarantining because they have a grocery store and their water supply and everything. So they're just self-sufficient. So they're just saying you can't come in if you weren't here. You can't even get water or groceries. Sorry.
Yeah.
And then the Panama Canal was closed to sailboats a couple weeks ago. They still have essential shipping going through, but all those things kind of.
And then David Sadzaglishvili, whew, boy, that's a tough one. Says, "Do you drink whiskey?" Makes me remember that's the other crazy thing that happened is the government of Panama banned the sale of alcohol in the whole country. So I don't mean just bars or restaurants. I mean you can't sell or buy alcohol. There is an alcohol prohibition in Panama, which is again, very strong, right? It's a very strong response. We're not entirely sure why they did it.
Yeah.
My theory is, you tell people they can't work, so they're out of work for the indefinite future. And you got a lot of people in Panama that just don't have a huge amount of safety net savings, we'll call it. And so, people start spending a little bit too much of what money they do have on alcohol because it's tough times,
My theory was that people were getting a little bit rowdy also with all this free time and anxiety and just alcohol. So I'm thinking maybe crime or just like disturbances were happening. And so the government was like, we need to end this. So yeah, it's pretty much a ghost town right now in Bocas del Toro. I've heard Panama City is similar. But yeah, no booze. And that's the other thing we were thinking about is if things kind of continue along this route, will there be an increase in crime? Because, a lot of people in Panama live kind of day to day. And so now that they're restricted by these certain hours where they can come into town, for those people who, get their food every day, it's going to be really difficult for them. So we're wondering what the climate's going to be like. Right now we're hopeful. We're in a marina, and it's considered isolated enough, so we're actually allowed to walk around. But everyone in the marina, yeah, everyone in the marina does social distancing, so we're like keep 6 feet away from each other.
Kind of.
Some people are. Yes, yeah. I kind of like do this. But anyways, yeah. So we decided, with all that information, to postpone our Pacific crossing. Not only because we were actually running behind a little bit on schedule, but because all these changes have. Like I said, they closed down the Panama Canal. We actually have friends on Parlay Revival who tried to cross the Pacific, but around the time that they were trying to do that, which was around the time we got out of the boatyard, they actually closed down the South Pacific Islands, so they're not accepting.
Like French Polynesia is not issuing new visas. They're not allowing new people into the country. And I think a lot of the South Pacific nations are doing the same. So
right.
They were saying if they're going to go, they're going to have to just do it without really checking in anywhere. and just kind of beeline it more or less to New Zealand.
And they're really lucky. They're in a great position because they have a water maker. They've got a huge boat with refrigeration and a freezer, so they're pretty much good to go for 6 months. That's what Colin was saying, which is awesome. Unfortunately, Atticus is not really in that position. First of all, we don't have a water maker. And it's kind of ironic that we finally saved up enough money to buy a water maker and put our order in with an Italian company. And so literally the day that the week that they were going to ship out our water maker, Italy went in total lockdown. And so the company is shut down indefinitely. So we don't have a water maker. So the most that we can kind of be off grid for comfortably is probably a little bit more than a week.
Probably a week and a half to 2 weeks if we're stretching our water.
Yeah,
we've done 2 weeks.
Yeah, we can. It's
just not as fun.
Yeah.
Not a lot of bathing happening.
Yeah. And so, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say one thing about that is that here in Panama, it rains a lot. Normally, now we're in the dry season, and so it hasn't been raining a lot, but it's supposed to start back up. So anyway, the point being that once the rain does fill back in, then we actually can stay. How long did you think, we could stay off grid if we're collecting rainwater?
Food-wise, then?
Yeah, food-wise.
Man, we could definitely do 2 or 3 months. I mean, we're not eating like kings. But
yeah, how long would be comfortable,
Maybe a month and a half.
Yeah, okay.
If we're catching fish every day.
And if we can get an internet connection.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. Now we've got the Wii Boost, and we're feeling pretty. I'm excited about that because a lot of the towers here, they're kind of elevated. They're up on the mountains, and then we're in this kind of expansive archipelago. And so there is a chance that in a lot of the anchorages we're hoping to visit, we will have a decent internet connection. But yeah, so that's our
plan. Is basically, since we can't cross the Pacific this year, we're going to wait until next year. And in the meantime, we're going to try to do as much cruising as we can, and we'd love to just go off-grid now. So for the last week and a half since we got out of the boatyard, we've been just killing ourselves to get Atticus ready so we could go off-grid. And...
So I was reading the comments. What were you saying?
Well, we were getting Atticus ready to go off-grid, and 2 things happened.
Yeah, so the first thing was the air filter.
Yeah.
You'll see in the episode, our air filter just imploded on itself, and so we were trying to get 2 new ones, and just as they were about to get here, the air mailer, the air everything plane related just shut down in Panama, and so we're not going to be getting our air filters. So I've got a plan to basically just use some polyurethane, just foam for cushions, and cut it in the shape of our air filter housing and just shove it in the housing. If any of you guys know if that's a good or bad idea, please let me know.
It seems like a very fiery idea.
Yeah.
That looks flammable.
I've got to try to figure that one out. But I mean, the other filter was paper, more or less,
true.
And the housing is plastic.
Right. Yeah.
So I can't imagine it's that hot. But anyway,
so that's our limiting factor right now.
Yeah.
Hopefully we'll be able to jury rig a solution and then head off a little bit. The other thing that happened was we were told this morning that cruisers would have to, if they were in the anchorage, stay in the anchorage and not move, and cruisers who are in a marina have to stay in their marina and not move. And that was kind of disappointing news for us because we figured if we could go out at anchor and not even in the anchorage here where there's a lot of boats, but just find a totally remote island where there's no one around, we'd be decreasing our risk and also not spreading the virus to other people. So we thought that would be the responsible thing and fun thing to do. And so we've been kind of working with the local authorities here to see if we could get permission to actually cruise a little bit. So I think our latest update is that we can, right?
Yes. So long story short, the Marina, which the Marina does a really good job of really being in the know of what's happening. Because a lot of the problems here are that these rules are made in Panama City for Panama City for the most part. 'Cause, I mean, the vast majority of Panamanians live in and around Panama City. Whereas where we are, I mean, this is just, we're on the outskirts. We're way far away from the city, and there's, not a very dense population here. And so you get these rules that are kind of designed for a city, and you're wondering, okay, how do you interpret that rule for, say, cruisers in an archipelago, right? So you're only allowed to leave your home for 2 hours a day. Does that mean boats can't leave their marina, right? And you have no idea how they're going to interpret it. I mean, it's all up to these local officials.
And the fine is really crazy. I think somebody said it's like $50,000 if you're caught on the street without your passport in the correct time slot, which is insane. To me, it's almost like, why don't they just make it somewhat reasonable? Because, like, I almost take it less seriously. Not that I'm going to be a deviant and not follow the rules, but I almost take it less seriously with such a absurd number. Like, no, I don't know any locals in Bocas del Toro who can afford $50,000. We certainly can't.
yeah. Anyway, so Stargate Pioneer says you can buy a lot of alcohol for $50,000.
Right? Maybe the police are just hoping somebody breaks the law so they can kick back and drink all the alcohol reserves.
Yeah.
But anyways, that's basically our update. We can open up the floor for chatting unless you have anything else you want to add.
I didn't really quite finish. So the Marina sent one of their employees over to the port captain's office today to just hash out exactly at least how they were going to interpret the law. And they were saying that they're considering boats as homes. So as long as you're on the boat, then you're fine. So you're only allowed to go into town 2 hours a day.
Which is great.
Right, yeah, which is very good.
As long as we can get our air filter fixed.
Yeah, and as long as things don't change while we're out there.
Right, that's another problem.
That is a concern. We're not going to go out for at least another week. So there's another week for us to kind of feel out the situation. We're also going to be in touch with the Marina, and so they can give us a heads up as things develop. But I think we should be, pretty good. And not to mention that in reality, and there are a couple people have mentioned this, that more or less the best thing that we could do is go off grid. I mean, that's the safest thing for us to do, and it's probably the best use of our time right now because we otherwise cannot leave the marina except for these 2-hour excursions. So I think it's probably our best option at this point. But I never thought we would be in a situation like this where we're wondering can we move the boat? The whole going off and cruising thing, in my head I'm thinking, well, it's just this ultimate freedom. You can just go wherever you want to, whatever you want to do, you can just get away from civilization. And you kind of can, but this has been kind of a sobering realization that you're never, well, not never, but you're often a lot more connected to civilization than you think, right? And so here we are all of a sudden in this seemingly out-of-the-way archipelago, and, officials are debating whether or not they're going to allow us to move. So I'm not trying to comment on it like it's been a bad thing. I totally understand the situation, but it's I know most of you are being affected by this one way or another in pretty extreme degrees, and it's interesting that the cruising lifestyle is being very much affected as well. I
mean, that being said, you could be risky. We know people who even when they're traveling country to country don't check into the country. So you could be kind of like a pirate and, disobey the laws. And at this point in time, I don't know if they have enough manpower in a lot of countries to be enforcing on the water, new vessels coming in. So you can kind of be, free on the water as long as, in my opinion, you have a water maker.
Well, but even, we had 2 boats that just arrived to Panama. They left Grand Cayman I think they got here about a week ago. They left Grand Cayman, had contacted San Andres to see can we still enter into Colombia, And they said, yes, you can. So they took off for San Andres, which is, a 3-day trip, 4-day trip. For us, it's like 5. So they get there, and the rules have changed by the time they got there. And so they say, we're not letting anybody into the country, move it. And so then they continued on to Panama. They get here, and Panama says, we're not letting you in. And so they were just going to literally kick them out and just say, we don't care where you're going to go. It's not our problem. And luckily, the owner of the Marina,
who's awesome,
who's a really good guy and just a real advocate for the cruising community, went to talk to the officials and say, listen, if you're going to kick these people out and not give them a safe haven, their safety is at that point your responsibility. I mean, where are they going to go at that point? And so he was able to, through a variation of quoting international maritime law.
Oh, real quick, Sailing Marina just said it's very lucky that you were able to move and still cruise around Panama. In France, people are not even allowed to move their boat. That's interesting.
Yeah, and that's indicative of a country that has a much larger pleasure boating population, right? So cruisers aren't even really on the radar for the federal government because there's just not a lot of them in Panama, They're in San Blas, way out of the way. They're here in Bocas, which is, kind of very separated from the capital. And then the number of cruising boats in and around Panama City is small. So I feel like I'm not expecting any boat-specific legislation or rules coming from the government here. I could be wrong, but it's just that's the vibe I'm getting. Whereas in a place like France, you would actually get rules that are specific to boaters. Like, here's what you do if you're a boater. Yeah.
And then Theo Herman was asking, how is the toilet paper situation in Panama right now? And we're actually really lucky because Bocas del Toro is a huge tourist destination. And so in the high season, they're stocked up to have tons of tourists, even though the local population is fairly small. So when things started getting crazy, all the tourists left Bocas del Toro, but the grocery stores are still full of stuff. So there's a lot of toilet paper, paper towel. There's no hand sanitizer really in town that I saw, but you can buy alcohol, put it in a water bottle with water and spray it. And then the other thing that was a little bit low the other day was rice, but then they restocked. So everything looks normal. I went grocery shopping 2 days ago, and the fruits and vegetables were still plentiful. So we're really lucky to be in a location that is not having problems with stocking issues.
Yeah, no, in that regard, we're in a great place. Yeah, the way I was kind of putting it is the supply chains for this area are kind of designed for this many people, and right now there's this many people here. So for getting food and stuff, we're in a really good spot.
And someone was asking, how do they know if you've been in town for more than 2 hours? And basically, you get a specific time based on the number of your passport. So if they catch you in town and it's 5 o'clock and they look at your passport and the number on your passport is 1 o'clock, then they know you've been in town for longer than you're supposed to. Right.
Today's the first day that they've been doing that, and the word on the street was that there were no cops checking passports or anything. Now, today might be a transition day, or they might not check. And it's a fair enough question because, again, this legislation is probably more designed for Panama a densely populated area like Panama City. Last week when we went into town to get groceries, it was a ghost town. There was nobody around. And so to stagger people going into a town where there's already nobody really there, it's debatably going to be enforced loosely here.
So I'd love to go ahead.
Well, real quick, I just wanted to say there was a couple of people reporting like cruising rules in other countries right now.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So Hapon T says Puerto Rico, you can't go in or out. All marinas are closed.
Interesting.
And then we also have Alex Hamaron. Jamaron?
He's a patron.
Sorry, Alex. It says the Bahamas will only let you go inter-island if you're on your way elsewhere. No cruising. And I mean, so the Bahamas, right? That's a country that would be very sensitive to even what the word cruising means, right? And so they could say something like, "There is no cruising allowed."
Jeff Erdman says Palm Beach in Miami has shut down recreational boating.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then, and then KD410SE says, if you're having to be stationary, Panama is about as nice as it gets.
True.
So that's something that we were thinking was lucky for us, is that, all right, the Gold Across the Pacific isn't going to happen this year. And we want to be really clear, we are just postponing it for next year. We have every intention to just do exactly what we were planning on doing, but next year. But if we had to be somewhere for an indeterminate amount of time, Panama is pretty great.
And we were falling behind on projects, so now we just have a whole nother year to just keep on working on Atticus. So
well, and to do a lot of cruising.
Yeah.
We don't have a year's worth of projects. So
thank God.
For you DIY people out there, I'm sorry to say we are going to start cruising
hit the water again.
But I know for a lot of you're probably sighing in relief because we're actually going to start making cruising content.
Trust me, I am too. I cannot wait to be at anchor again.
Yeah, and there's a lot to explore here in the Bocas del Toro area. I mean, long story short, it's this large archipelago with just tons of nooks and crannies and nice anchorages and cool islands. So we're excited to cruise here for a bit. We'll have to take the new incoming rules in stride.
And as they change.
And then once things loosen up and we're able to kind of move around the country again, whenever that might be, then we get to go explore the Sandblast Islands, which are supposed to be just absolutely amazing, and I can't wait. And we've got the time to explore them, which is cool, because in most of the past cruising that we've done, we've sort of always been in a little bit of a rush. You know what I mean? Like, we've always been like, oh boy, we're getting close to hurricane season. We got to get here. So it's going to be really exciting to just get to do the fun part, which I'm excited about.
We made so many improvements that a lot of aspects of cruising are going to be a lot better, so I can't wait.
Maybe.
Heather Gray says, thanks for sharing your positive attitude. It's contagious. Thanks, Heather. And also, we did want to mention tonight we are donating all of our Super Chat and PayPal contributions to a nonprofit organization called Direct Relief, and there's more information about them in the description below. But essentially, a couple of weeks ago, a friend of mine who's a PA in the United States got coronavirus because at her hospital they ran out of PPE. So a patient who she was assessing...
Personal protective equipment.
Right. And so a patient she was assessing coughed in her mouth, and it took about 14 days for her to start getting the full-blown symptoms. And it was really horrendous, and she survived. And so it just made me realize that we really want to play our part and help out in any way that we can. So we found this really cool NGO called Direct Relief, and right now they're supplying PPE to hospitals and communities in need. And they also manufacture PPE right now, so face masks. So the last thing is Sailrite, who I'm obsessed with, have released a video on how to create DIY face shields, which are a little bit more effective than the face mask, which you might see people wearing. So check them out. Check that video out in the description below. And if you're at home and you can sew, definitely, and you have some time and you want to contribute, that's a great way to help. So that's all I'll say. And thank you again for all of you who are donating tonight. We really appreciate it. And we know that those healthcare providers who are, I'm going to get teary, are on the front lines taking care of everyone.
It's okay, buddy.
Can appreciate it.
Yeah, and that's, and I'm sure you guys, whether you're from the States or Canada or Europe, it's a problem all over the world, but this organization is really they're trying hard to identify the areas that need it the most, right? So areas that really just don't have the supplies and equipment that they should have, because man, if some developing country, if all of their health workers get sick relatively at the same time, that can be a big problem, not just for coronavirus, but for all the normal things that people are in and out of hospitals for. So
yeah, so let's do some fun questions. I don't know about you guys, but it would be nice to get a little break from coronavirus conversation.
Yes.
So we've got a great question from Joey Woodpine, and he says, how did you guys meet and who asked who? And how did you decide to sell everything and sail around the world?
Well, gosh, I guess it was my idea first.
Well, how do we meet?
How did we meet? So I was working on a yacht. We both worked on super yachts, and
I saved Jordan's life.
Yeah, and I remember, I think we were doing a wash down. So I'm washing the boat and look over, and my buddy Tyler looks over, and there's the new girl walking up the gangway. He's like, hey, I call her. And I was like, screw you. But I, respected it, because that's what you do when people...
Meanwhile, I had no idea this was happening. Like, if you're ever walking by a super yacht and there are deckhands on deck and they have a walkie-talkie, they're probably talking about you if you're a female.
Yeah, just disgusting.
Yeah.
Chauvinist
code.
Stuff.
Yeah, they've got code for it. Anyways, so I was just innocently interviewing for a job, got the job. We started working on the same super yacht together. And we were just friends for a long time. We really got along because we both liked hiking and climbing.
And I liked her from the beginning. I was really into Desiree.
I had a boyfriend at the time, so I was, doing my own thing. And then eventually it just got to a point where I realized I had feelings for Jordan. So I broke up with my ex-boyfriend at the time, and then like a couple days later, I told Jordan that I was single, and the rest is history.
Yeah, it pretty much. Yeah, it was all done at that point.
Yeah. And then as far as how we decided to sell everything and sail the world, when I met Jordan, I was working on super yachts to be able to do an around the world backpacking trip, and my plan was to save up working on super yachts and then also start a travel blog or vlog, figure out a way to make money while traveling. And then Jordan, meanwhile, studied film in college, and we both really enjoyed kind of investigating and delving into questions about civilization and society and culture and economics, and we initially decided to do a docu-series about our adventures of sailing around the world, and we thought it would actually be about not us. We didn't even think we'd be characters in this series. But once we started doing videos on YouTube, we found that that was kind of what people were more interested in, and so we just kind of switched gears.
It evolved a lot, yeah. It evolved a lot. And I had studied film production in college, and so I was kind of entering it from these very traditional video media.
Brad Scott is not here tonight.
This has got to be the first live stream that Brad... Dude, we got to give Brad such a hard time.
I know.
Yeah, what a punk. Be like, Brad, they got drunk and got naked, I swear.
You missed everything.
Yeah. But anyway, yeah, so I was sort of thinking, like, well, maybe we could make a show that would get picked up by Discovery Channel, or like we had no idea what we were going to do. We saw people like Delos had been making videos, and White Spot Pirates, and who else was really doing it at that point?
Uma had started a couple. And
no, Uma came out with theirs right after we came out with our first video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's the one thing that we can claim, is that we at least made our first video before Uma.
Yeah, but they continued.
But they knocked it out of the park like immediately.
Yeah,
we took us a while. Yeah, if you guys, I would just say, like, don't even attempt to dig too deep into our video archives. You'll be like, whoa.
Yeah.
They've gotten a lot better.
Right, yeah. And we actually got to the point where we didn't have enough time because we were learning how to refit the boat, working basically full time, and trying to figure each other out and not kill each other.
Oh, Michelle Fed says, did the dolphin tour before you set sail. So there you go. That's cool.
That's cool.
What boat was it on, Michelle? Was it Echo or
Footloose?
Footloose? Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, we stopped doing like fully produced and edited videos, and we just did what we called Atticus updates Atticus updates on our phones for about a year, and we were really surprised that people were even watching those. So some of you here tonight might have started watching our show about 5 or 6 years ago, and thanks for sticking around, for having confidence in us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We got another question. Mark Panis says, what's the story behind those notes carved in the shelf behind you? I'm guessing this?
Oh, the names, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you're asking me.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so you guys may... Oh, and real quick, Michelle said that she was on Footloose. Very cool. That's awesome, Michelle.
Did we dance for you? We started a little dancing thing at some point. Yeah.
But these names up here are... We're doing like a new Patreon reward structure. And so pretty much if you want to see exactly how that works, you can check out our Patreon page. Right here, these names that are actually on stickers. Move your pretty little head there, buddy. So we got Jordan Ivy, Chad Towner. That's the first mate level.
Yes.
And I believe this is the bosun level.
Uh-huh.
So bosun people get written up here. And so anyway, it's something to check out on our Patreon channel if you're curious. But
and Hugh Van Dyne just said, coronavirus is the drinking game word. We should have done that at the beginning. So if you're not watching this live, well, it's too late now. But you can take a shot or a drink of whatever you want to anytime the word coronavirus happens.
Anyone, anywhere says the word coronavirus, you have our permission to take a shot or a slug.
Yeah, this is inspired by a patron live stream that we did. We released a video a couple weeks ago where Jordan said extrusion like 30 times in the episode. So we did a drinking game and a watch party. So every time somebody said extrusion, we'd take a shot. So it got a little funny and sloppy, but it was really fun.
Yeah.
All right. Anyways, I wanted to do a couple of thank yous.
Hugh Van Dyne says Brad knew. That's why he's passed out already.
That's great.
He's been playing the Corona drinking game for a while now.
I just want to do a couple thank yous for Super Chat so far if you want to find a good question to address. Mm-hmm. Heather G, thanks so much from Heather and Vic. We've got David Daly, you're awesome. He says, bring on the cowboy hat. We've got Aaron A. Harvey, thank you so much. We've got Greg Grenner. The money goes to a good charity, true that. Bob Edwards says, good cause, great cause, folks. Let's kick it. Awesome. We're on board. Bay Area Guy says, sailing without rum is like a night sky without stars, especially in rum, producing land such as yours. I know, and it's actually funny because Jordan and I have been cutting back on our alcohol a lot, and so we don't have any alcohol on the boat. So this will be a fun couple of months. We've got Jasic, thanks again for joining us. And super chatting. We've got Jesperodrup. Can you read that?
Jesperodrup.
Yep.
Yeah, you nailed it.
We've got Alex Jomarin. I butcher your name every time.
Follow
Sorry,
your
Alex.
heart, buddy.
Sorry.
Follow your heart.
We've got Peter Boner says, your channel is great. I watch it all the time. Whatever do you please, do whatever you please, but just be safe and keep up the adventure. Thanks so much. We've got Larry Sumner. He said, for health and safety, buy full body condoms like the movie Naked Gun. LOL. We'll look into that. Maybe Sailrite can make a video on a DIY body condom. Thanks so much for Ed Joy. You got a good question? I can come back to thank yous in a little bit.
I sure do. So we got a couple of good points about the air filter. So I was talking about it a little bit earlier. We basically busted our air filter on our diesel engine, and we need a new one, but we can't get a new one because of the, everything being shut down here. And so we've been talking about doing a foam, just kind of stuffing some normal polyurethane foam that you'd use for cushions or something into the filter housing. And we're getting some mixed signals on it. Charles Singstad says, marine diesels do not require an air filter. A screen, like a window screen size, to keep out large particles is all you need. But then a couple people were saying, do not use foam. And so
it seemed like a great idea.
Yeah, specifically, and I don't see it now, but somebody was saying that, they'd be concerned about not enough air getting through, if it's too constricted. Oof. And so you might get like kind of lower power or some black smoke coming out. And then also the suction, it might kind of pull little chunks of the foam out or pull the foam into it. I was thinking about, putting it like a t-shirt or something around the foam to keep the foam together. Yeah. But that, again, you might get even more or even less air actually passing through at that point. So anyway, more of what you guys think. So let's see if you guys can tell me if you think how many of you think it's a good idea and how many think it's a bad idea, and how many of you think like, yeah, it would be a fine idea if you did just this or that. Tell me your thoughts on this. And
we do have a contact at Beta Marine, just this guy Farron, who's freaking amazing. We've asked him the stupidest questions you could possibly imagine since we installed our engine brand new back in Key West. That was our biggest purchase on Atticus of all time. But so yeah, we got a brand new engine, didn't know how to install it. So man, we called Farron so many times. So we're also gonna call him over at Beta Marine and see what he says. Paul
Wellner says, "Do like Apollo 13 and show us all the parts you have."
Awesome.
Yeah, I'm gonna need you guys to all get into a room and just dump it all on the table. Be like, "This is what we have to work with, gentlemen."
That's so great.
That's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot of people are talking about like stockings. Or like someone said pantyhose or something like that.
Interesting.
And then use a motorcycle air filter. Yeah, something to consider. And then a balled up window screen. Yeah. Someone says John Bushell says car air filter and cut it to shape. That's a good idea. If I could find, the problem is I just don't know. I don't know if. I'm going to be able to find anything right now. You know what I mean? Like going into town. I could try.
And then Jeffrey Arrett says, have you posted the air filter number online? Someone in the area may have one. It's worth a try. There's a pretty active Facebook group here that the Anchorage uses. But I don't know. Since we're so remote most of the time, it's kind of rare to find Beta Marine parts. But we'll keep our eye out. I saw a question earlier about someone was asking if we have water at the marina, and yeah, it's been a little bit of the dry season for the last 2 or 3 weeks, so things were getting a little bit crazy because they started rationing water, and that started to be a little bit of a concern. But it's rained the last couple of nights, and so I think they're slowly opening up the water usage. But yeah, we do have water for drinking water and for, just water on board, which we use to sanitize vegetables and wash the dishes.
Mm-hmm. So we got a couple new ideas. Blimp Commander says a brass or steel pot scrubber can be used. And then Eric Thompson says you can make an engine air filter from a home AC unit filter and put a screen under it and sail on.
Sail on.
See, so
that's what I want to see.
That's sort of what I'm starting to lean towards, is some sort of a fine mesh or screen. We could even use our bug screen, maybe. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If we have enough of it left over. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, okay. So these are all great points. And I did see someone saying, the foam just wouldn't let enough air through. And so definitely something to consider here.
Yeah, got another question from Curtis Prince. Curtis Prince Music was saying, how did you decide on the Allied Seawind?
Well, we were living in Sarasota, Florida, and you were living at your parents, and I was living at my parents. Very serendipitously, our parents both, when we met each other, both had living situations in Sarasota, Florida, which up until that year, my parents didn't live there. So that was very
super random
and lucky.
Yeah, so we quit our jobs on the yacht and then decided to come back to the States to look for a boat.
Yeah, and we're like, yeah, we can just look for a boat in Florida. That'll be great. Mm-hmm. But she was living at her folks. I was living at my folks. They didn't live super, super close, so we were seeing each other in kind of odd times, and it was not ideal for us. And so I felt a little bit pressured to get a boat and get moving on it.
Yeah, also, you guys might be able to tell from our videos, but Jordan is a very emotional person. Like when he gets stoked about something, he like gets stoked.
Yeah.
And so he had been dreaming about buying a sailboat and sailing off into the sunset for so long. For me, I had never even stepped foot on a sailboat, but I was down for the adventure, and I love traveling. And so I think that was a large part of it also. I think he was just super excited and wanted to get the party started.
Mm-hmm.
And specifically how we decided on the Allied Seawind, there's a really good blog post by Adam Voyages about blue water sailboats under 35 feet, I think.
Is that by Adam Voyages?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And so we kind of just studied blue water seaworthy boats in our price range, and it happened to be that there was an Allied Seawind for sale in Key West. So we basically just made a really emotional buy. We bought the first sailboat we stepped foot on. So
yeah, and
wouldn't advise that.
I would, to be fair, it was also we started with what are a list of blue water boats that we would consider. Then we found a handful of them that were for sale in Florida, and then Atticus was the cheapest of all of those. So to be fair, that was on Atticus's side as well. And my thinking at the time, which was just so naive, was, oh, for $5,000, like it doesn't even matter what's wrong with the boat. You know, we can just fix it up. Like for $5,000, that's nothing. And little did I know that, I mean, realistically, if we would have spent $20,000 on a boat that was in decent condition, we probably would have saved money in the long run.
Yeah,
but man, that's so hindsight is 2020. Yeah. Like I don't even know if that's true.
And we learned a lot, and there is something to be said for just, you know, you're young and stupid and naive, and you just go for it, and you make it work. You put in the hard work, and come out the other end
and
a better person.
You become just a little bit less stupid. Yeah.
Yep. Jeffrey Abbott says, new drinking game, shots every time an oddball filter idea is suggested.
That's great. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Points for making it really weird, you know?
The weirder it is, the more drinking.
I did see one good one was a Scotch-Brite pad. You know, as like a temporary, you could just make a filter by cutting the pads just right.
Right,
you know?
Yeah. Someone was asking if, Brian Stevens was saying, is the guy you bought the boat from still around? And that would be, Scott. And he actually passed away about a year and a half into our refit. But it was pretty cool because we became fairly close with him, and we visited him once in West Palm Beach. We sent him pictures of the refit. And then Jordan at the time wrote an article for Cruising World, and it wasn't published before Scott passed away, but we sent him our rough draft, and we were like, we're going to submit this to Cruising World. What do you think? So he got to read that article called From Riches to Rags. You know, he's an awesome person. We're still in contact with his family a little bit, and we're forever grateful for just his positive energy and, being so kind with us. And really, I feel like the vibe of the boat was just right, you know? It just felt right, and that had a lot to do with Scott and his dream to sail around the world. So, yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm going to do a couple more thank yous if you want to find a good question.
Yeah, okay.
Steve O, thanks so much. He says, hi, buds, are you two using a Wi-Fi directional receiver? And if so, which one, and how does it work for you in the Marina? That's you.
That's me. We are using the WeBoost, which is made by Wilson, and we haven't had too big of a need to use it specifically in this marina, but we've been in a couple situations now where when we have hardly any signal at all, it'll give us a good signal. And so that's kind of their claim to fame. If you've got like just a sliver, just a hint of a signal, they can almost make it like full bars.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. And then, you know, we haven't had it this way yet, but I've been told that you can be in a situation where you don't have any signal at all, and then you'll get kind of like a poor signal out of it.
Yeah, that's what somebody was saying
Rick Moore was
about
saying
the San Blas Islands.
Yeah.
And we actually learned about the ours is called the Drive, the WeBoost Drive. We heard about it through Gone with the Winds, who used to RV around the world, and it's a very common RV appliance, and it's slowly been cross-genre tech tool. All right, we've got Moto Traveler. He says, you guys are doing great. You're both very intelligent, and getting off-grid is your best move. Have 3 month supplies. We'll try to do that. Jim Homer, he says, good job, guys. Thanks for joining us, Jim.
And Tim Leary was here, too. I want to say hey, Tim. Sorry I didn't get to say hey earlier.
Yeah. We've got Captain Wendell Brunk. He says, Sailing Project Atticus rocks. We've got Sailing SV Someday, giving Brad Scott crap for not being here. We've got Josh Barnes. He says, I want to support because I love your work ethic. Thanks so much. That means a lot to us. We got Jamie Bauer. Stay safe, Dave and Janie Bauer from SV Wind Irish Rose. Got a good question?
Yes. Well, no.
I'll do a couple more thank yous. Okay, we've got PJ Arden. He says, keep the videos coming. What you might find boring, we find interesting. More underway videos. Trust me. I want to be underway so bad. You two make a good team. Stay safe. Question. Most dangerous thing that's happened to you so far?
Oh, probably getting pinned to the dock in Cuba.
Yeah, that was terrifying.
Yeah.
And I busted the crap out of my shin. And I didn't even realize it because my adrenaline was so high.
Yeah, so that you wouldn't have seen exactly what I'm talking about because in the episode we open up once we're kind of underway. So it's that episode, Escaping a Dangerous Squall, or Hit by a Dangerous Squall.
Yeah.
And by the time we started filming, we were already underway, and it had gotten super nasty. But right before that, we were on this concrete dock, and then the wind just came out of nowhere. And we were stupid. You could see a squall line coming, but you couldn't tell like when. It wasn't an abrupt squall line, you know.
And also,
it was a squall haze, if you will.
We really needed fuel because we wanted to catch this weather window to go make some easting along the southern coast of Cuba.
Yeah.
If we didn't get fuel that day, we wouldn't be able to leave for maybe another week or two. So, and our visa was what do you call it? Going to expire somewhat soon.
So we had reasons to be stupid.
Yeah, we were just naive and hopeful. Yeah.
So anyway, we were at this dock and we're waiting for the diesel guy, and I'm just like looking at this thing. There's no wind, and it was associated with a front, but it was supposed to not become a big deal. And I'm looking at this thing, and then all of a sudden I feel like this small amount of cold air, you know. This is Cuba, you know, it's not meant to be cold, right? And so I feel a little bit of cold. I'm like, we're out of here. And so I tell Desiree, like, let's go, you know. And so we start to try to push the boat off and get the boat away, and within 60 seconds there was so much wind pushing the boat on the dock that we couldn't get the bow off so that we could motor away from the dock. And so instantly the two of us couldn't do it. And so Desiree ran down the dock as I like tried to push the dock off the concrete, or the boat off the concrete. She runs down the dock and gets a couple of workers.
Well, they're fishermen, so they had fish guts on their hands. And
they're
I'm
like cleaning fish.
Help?
She's like, I need help. And they just like threw their fish guts down and started running down the dock with her. And so that like 5 of us were able to kind of work the boat to the edge of the pier, you know, and then we just gunned it. And I never realized that, I mean, banging up against concrete, you can sink your boat so fast. Oof. It's just not even funny.
Yeah, and then we had to motor to this anchorage, and it was really crazy wind and waves and everything, so it was just adrenaline filled. What about you guys? What's been your scariest thing or most dangerous thing that's happened to you guys while you've been sailing on your boats?
And I did want to say, Frenchie said spring lines in reverse. So he's saying, could you put a forward leading spring on and pull against it? And that's what I would do in a normal situation, but when you get enough wind, you just don't have the leverage. You can't, we could have put our engine in full reverse with a spring line and it wouldn't have pushed the bow off. There's just too much wind. And then not to mention, if you were able to get the bow off, you would have to get that spring line off very fast, because the moment you go into neutral, you've got to punch it. And I mean, how are you going to get that line off that quickly? Even with that, we didn't have enough power or leverage to be able to do that. So it's something that I always thought, and I'm not trying to belittle that comment, I always just figured, well, what do you mean pinned to a dock? You just, do something like a spring line, but there are situations where you're just not going to be able to do it.
You just really start to appreciate and respect the power of the ocean and the wind, especially when you're on a sailboat and a small sailboat. It's crazy, the force that the force is crazy.
I think the longer we do this, and I think this is the case for anybody, the more kind of pessimistic and
what's up, Bill Shea?
The more pessimistic and what's the word? Yeah, just pessimistic, right? Like, now we're going to be those people when it's flat calm and you're pulling up to a concrete dock at 10 at night, and we're going to be like, you know what? No, we're just going to keep going. And people are like, you're ridiculous. Like, you should take it easy, sleep, have a break. We're going to be like, nope, been there before, not going to do it. Like, it's just and that's probably a good thing, we're getting better at avoiding these kind of situations.
Got another question. Jacqueline Edgerton says, what water maker have y'all ordered? We are looking into options for our sailboat. We tried to order the Osmosi, I think it was the 12ES model, which is their smallest model. And we were also considering the Spectra Ventura 200C or T, I don't remember, the cheaper, smaller one.
Right? Might have been an S. No, it was the 200 was our first one that we're looking at, yeah.
And then our friends on Rick Moore on Sailing Sophisticated Lady, they got a model from Schenker, which is also, I think, an Italian company. But we decided to go with Osmosi because they're optimized for small sailboats, and they're using some cool new technology to increase their efficiency of the water maker. So we are stoked to potentially work with them. They give us a little bit of a discount, which really went a long way for us.
Yeah, and so that's all on hold now, indefinitely. Yeah. And so whenever things start to clear up in Italy and elsewhere, we'll continue to go through that. The thing that's not so bad about that is that Panama it's got a lot of rain, and this is the driest time of the year. So in a month we'll be pretty much out of the dry season, more or less, and so we'll have almost all the water that we can handle, and so we've got to put together some kind of a water collection setup, and that should be good for the next year. And then once we cross the Pacific, that's when we'll actually get back into areas that don't have so much rain.
Another question we have is Mark Tremblay says, SV Delos added a little crew member. Any plans to add a crew member on Atticus?
Yeah, I mean, we've been getting more and more serious talking about it.
Yeah. Our original plan was to kind of, Ivan IUD, kind of start trying to have a baby once we were, like, right before we made our Pacific crossing. And then do the crossing, and then just see how long it took, do some cruising, and then maybe around that point, if I get pregnant, sell Atticus, look for another fixer-upper sailboat that while I'm having baby for the first year or so, getting used to being a mom, Jordan can be refitting our next fixer-upper sailboat. But we probably won't be doing that now.
Yeah, and the other thing that was up in the air is if we would stick with Atticus for a while too, Right. I think we really may do that. So even once we have our first kid, just
makes more sense, especially now.
Just stay on Atticus for a little while with the baby, because I really think that the space issue that we have on Atticus won't be affected terribly by one baby. I mean, it will obviously be affected, but I think it's very doable. We'll basically just the starboard settee, we'll just be able to convert that into a crib. Like a crib, with a lee cloth, I want to get that. I think it's doable. Too. We will ultimately get a bigger boat at some point. Oh, but
but not huge. We'd like to keep it. I'd like to keep it under like 37 feet.
that's actually really interesting. So this is the first time that we've had a live stream since I kind of came to the epiphany that, yeah, I think I am starting to really look at boats under 40 feet again. Some of you may remember that I've been talking about, center cockpits in the 40 to 44 foot range for our like family boat, and I'm starting to realize that there are some really good models out there in the 33 to 35 foot range that do have 2 cabins and have everything that we kind of need, And
our big thing has always been we never want to live beyond our financial means. So I just like living minimally. I like having a small boat and managing everything and understanding the whole boat, being able to handle it by myself. So I'm really happy that it's kind of shifting back to a smaller boat. I've always kind of been on the smaller side, but I'm glad we met that couple. They lived on a 33 foot boat with 2 teenagers, and said that they were happy. So it can be done. A lot of people think living on a 30 foot boat isn't possible, but it can be done, and you can be happy.
Yeah, no, and so it's something that, yeah, we're just really into the idea of, like, at every stage of your life, with every decision you make, really be very conservative with your finances, and I think that just really has such an effect on how your life ends up over time. And so, I was starting to get into this wormhole of looking at bigger boats and the amount that they would cost, and I'm thinking, well, okay, should we finance it or what should we do? And I'm just so happy that I got kind of warped out of that. To be fair, most boats in the 33 to 36 foot range, they wouldn't be a very good family boat. And I want 2 separate cabins if we're going to have kids, once they start to get a little older. And
Daniel Aller says twins or triplets, and we're still kind of trying to decide between 1 or 2 kids. We're always going to be living remotely. That's just something that we found that we really like about the sailing life. And then in the future, we've talked about, like, our retirement plan is going to be to build an off-grid house in the middle of nowhere. And so we were thinking, and then do a video series about that. But we realized, if we have 1 kid and we're just always going to be in remote locations, then it might not be fair to them to just have nobody for them to hang out with. So it might be easier socially to have 2 kids. Although I don't know, I have no idea what the world is going to look like in a year. So right now we're just holding off.
yeah, it's definitely not happening now.
Yeah.
But yeah, just to give you guys an idea of what we're looking at, I really like the guy that we met in the yard who has a family. He has a Naiad. I think it's a 353 or 343. It's a 34 foot boat, and it's got a kind of a nice aft cabin, but relatively small and perfect for kids. Another thing I'm looking at is the Island Packet 35. So, and in a lot of ways, like, some of you are going to be like, oh, those things are tubs, and they kind of are a little bit, right? But we're not performance sailors, We've never been performance sailors, and I just don't think we're going to be. As long as we've got a boat that can sail anywhere, right? Like, it has to be able to tack easily. It has to be able to go to windward. It has to be able to perform to a certain extent, but I'm not trying to win any races. And so getting an affordable boat that, and a lot of you, I really appreciate too, are like saying, like, do not go into debt.
Yeah.
And I pretty much think we're at that point where we're going to attempt to go through our whole life maybe without taking on any debt.
Yeah,
and so
I think Atticus taught us that at the very least. Just things are going to cost way more than you think they are, and you increase your freedom by decreasing your debt and
your expenses.
Yeah. So, and then a couple people were asking about Monohull versus Catamaran, and our philosophy is always going to be, we're going to stick with monohulls because the value that you can get in a monohull, again, because we like living in our own financial means, within our own financial means, it's just not worth it for us to go the cat route, even though it is a lot more comfortable and pretty and luxurious. But that's just, not really, we don't want to set ourselves up for failure to be able to afford a lifestyle like that.
And so Wayfinders Now says Island Packet 35s are great, sail better than their reputation, well built, go anywhere, short-handed goodness.
Cool.
There you go. So, and see, Island Packets are one of those models where it's just like there's this divide, you know? It's like talking about gun control or something, you know? Like it's just, you either love them or hate them, it seems. But, and I'm kind of, you know, I'm kind of on the loving side myself. And then somebody else said, well, we got a couple of people asking, you know, Theo Hermans asked about the Tiana 37. JP asked about the Pacific Seacraft 37. And those are great boats, but both of them don't come with a stock 2-cabin layout, do they? And that's kind of my first, like, just non-starter if they don't have two cabins.
Yeah, we looked at a Tiana 37 in the Marina here that is for sale, and it did have 2 cabins, remember, but it was like so awkward when you go down the companionway because there was that cabin right there, and the stairs were like pushed to the side.
Yeah, so right, it looked as though it had been a previous owner had kind of segmented off the quarter berth and like built like a wall, and it really felt a lot more cramped in there. But now that we're kind of looking at other boats in that size range, we should look at it again and feel if we really feel the same way.
Yeah,
I like Tiana 37s.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my other thing, and I probably shouldn't go too deep into this, but I'm also, you know, by getting a smaller boat, I kind of would like to get a less old boat, potentially, right? Like the money that we save by going smaller, I might want to put a little bit of that into getting a boat that's a little bit newer, and not just because of the design, you know, or the luxury items, or mostly because I'm just starting to realize that age really takes a toll on boats. And so many of the problems that we're having on Atticus, and so much of why I feel like I can never quite catch up, it's a lot of age-related stuff. And I feel like newer boats, and don't get me wrong, I know that all boats always have problems all the time, but I really am starting to think that if you can get a slightly younger boat, you're just going to have a little bit less of these kind of really deep-rooted problems. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's just the grass is always greener, and I've got a nearly 60-foot boat that I'm sitting in, or 60-year-old boat, you know.
Yeah, I think it's just a pendulum, you know.
Yeah.
We've had so much of old boat problems that we're like, is there a solution on the other side? We'll pay for it.
Right. Like, I mean, literally, I don't think fiberglass boats really get older than Atticus, you know?
Yeah.
If it's a fiberglass boat, it's probably not older than this one.
1963. Real quick shout out to my niece, Aliana.
Okay, real quick. I just got to read this. Neil Lamont says, boring. Good night.
Good night, Neil.
Night, Neil. That's so awesome.
That's so funny.
Boring.
Anyways, what's up, Aliana? And then also Sandy, if you're watching tonight, happy birthday. And thanks for all of you guys for watching. Also, one more question. We've got Kaysen R says, how did you find the jobs you did in Isla Mujeres?
Just pure luck.
Yeah, really.
Pure luck and enthusiasm. I think desperation.
Desperation was really the key ingredient.
Yeah, I think it's amazing that when you're desperate, how lucky you get.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because all of a sudden, any opportunity, you're taking it. Whereas when you're not desperate, you're keeping most doors closed, so to speak. And so we got to Isla Mujeres. We dragged anchor into a marina with a particularly nasty cold front. So we had some repairs to do on Atticus, and we didn't have any money. We knew we had to find jobs relatively soon anyway, and so we went to see a welder to potentially do some of the fixes that Atticus needed after the dragging incident, and he made it known that he worked in Isla Mujeres and had a job to rebuild an anchor coming up, or rebuild a rudder. And we started chatting and saying that's what we want to do. We want to work while we cruise. And he And he, lives on this welder, he lived on a trawler, a 68-foot trawler.
Is it that big?
67-foot trawler. It's in the 60-foot range.
Mm-hmm.
And
Way
so
bigger than
him and his
Atticus.
wife were cruisers and working while they cruise as well. But just a little bit more skilled than us. And anyway, so he said, after talking for a while, he said, all right, yeah, if you guys need work, I mean, I could use someone to grind the fiberglass to do all the crappy labor,
Oh.
And I said, I would love to do that.
Actually,
and
I was just thinking, Jordan wrote another article for Cruising World that talks exactly about this story. So check it out in the February edition of Cruising World. And what is it called?
it's online.
Oh.
So you can just search
Jordan
Sweat, Tears, and Fiberglass
yeah.
is the name of the article. And yeah, it's a cool story kind of about the dragging incident and how we found our first work there.
Mm-hmm. Sorry to interrupt you, bud.
Yeah, no, it's all right. But yeah, it's called Sweat, Tears, and Fiberglass. You can also just look up my name, Jordan Wicht, and then Cruising World, or you can look up Project Atticus, Cruising World. There's 2 articles that are available online at this point, and then the third one is in this latest edition, which is a cool article.
And real quick, Michelle Feed says, please wish our son good health. He is a doctor in New York City and just diagnosed with COVID-19.
Bummer.
We really hope he recovers quickly, and thank him for being on the front lines and really helping people in need. Every time I think of doctors, I get really teary-eyed because
Yeah.
they're really just doing a good job.
Yeah. No, it's very heroic and admirable.
Yeah. Gosh, I want to do some super chat thank yous also. And the last thing I'll say about Jordan's about how we found work, I would have to say Captain John really took us under his wing and showed us how to network within the cruising world. And being in an anchorage where there were a lot of cruisers, there was an active cruisers net, and Jordan actually started running the radio net in the morning, and so we would just advertise my sewing. And actually, you got most of your jobs from Captain John, and then I started advertising on the cruiser's radio. Somebody would tell me something's wrong with their sail. I'd zip over on my dinghy, get a quote, figure out how to get the supplies, and then patch it up for them. So that was really, really helpful. And we have another video, which I'll link to down below or in a card, and it talks about lessons we learned trying to find work while sailing.
Yeah, and what was kind of cool is Desiree, because Captain John, I just kind of started working with him right away. And so he and I built, I think it was 4 rudders that summer.
The other rudder.
And we did, we built an extension to a big Bertram, like a 58-foot Bertram, I think it was. And just did all kinds of other projects together. And whereas once Desiree's little mini business started getting heated up, like she was just booked. It was really impressive, So whereas I was sort of had a partnership going on, she did a great job of just kind of building something from the ground up.
It was really stressful because I had started sewing in Key West a little bit for money, but kind of from friends who were just like, oh, let's help Desiree out a little bit, like, I need new cushions. The color's not right. So by the time I got to Isla Mujeres, I had to start...
Yeah, you got a couple of those.
Yeah. Fred, I love you.
Yeah.
Our neighbor. He's like, I don't like that color. I think they should be beige. I'm like, all of your cushions. He's like, mm-hmm. So anyways, once we got to Isla Mujeres, I had to start accepting jobs for on projects I'd never done before, and it was super stressful, and I was freaking out. I made a lot of mistakes, but thank goodness for Sailrite. I called them so many times, and then Angela, who used to work at Sailrite, and she did a lot of their how-to videos. She found us on Facebook and said, if you have any questions, let me know. So I kind of called her my sewing fairy godmother. So anyways, it wasn't like easy peasy, we find work and it's all great and I'm just sewing in this beautiful montage and doing everything right. No, it was really stressful trying to figure out how much to charge for. and then how to get our supplies. It was kind of crazy. But there's a video about what we learned. I want to do a couple more thank yous if you want to get another question. We've got Blimp Commander. He says, glad you are making the best of a bad situation. Keep it up, buds. We've got Michelle Feed. Thank you so much. We've got Sailing SV Someday. That says, where are you going to cruise after the Modelo virus since you are not going through the canal? We're hoping to do San Blas and Las Perlas. And because we do videos while we're sailing, we basically can half the amount of time. So let me put this more concisely. 6 months of cruising is actually more like 3 months of cruising because we have to do videos. So we figure we've got,
about 6 months.
About 6 awesome months to do. Just really get to know the San Blas and Las Perlas. If we get sick
and this area, Bocas del Toro.
Yeah, and if we get sick of Paradise, we can check out Colombia.
Cartagena would be something we could do. That's a little bit more like kind of a city, which is not the kind of cruising we normally try to do. We could also do on the Pacific side Las Perlas, as well as go to Costa Rica. We've been told that the Costa Rican mainland is not necessarily the best for cruising. It's a little expensive, and I don't want to talk bad about it, but it sounds like it's kind of a step down from Panamanian cruising grounds. But there's that island off the coast, the one that Zingaro went to.
Looks epic.
Isla Coco?
Yeah, I think so.
Something like that. It's kind of like the Galapagos. It's very far from the mainland. It's like 500 miles away or something like that. And you have to get a special permit to go there, and it's got a ton of cool wildlife.
Yeah, like hammerheads and tiger sharks.
That would be like a mission well worth all of the effort, to get to see something unique like that. That would be cool.
We've got Bill Shea. He said tractor filler or utility engine filter. Take a drink. Good job. Good idea, Bill. Thanks so much. We've got Warren Drum said, here's my tiny contribution to help out. Thank you. I'm sure those doctors are going to appreciate it. Heidi in Frenny's Garage says, you are so generous to donate when things are unstable for you. Heidi and Franny. Thanks so much, guys. It's great to see your name there, too. And somebody was asking if we have any sponsors on the horizon or new sponsors or partnership deals on the horizon. And I think with the coronavirus, things are just, financially we're kind of cutting back. I'm sure a lot of companies are with their marketing, so nothing to announce. Let's see. Lisa Repack says, hey buds, glad to see you guys. A live chat really helps out with all the social distancing. I think more live chats would be good for all of us. Yeah, we're happy, and hopefully we can do this more.
Yeah, and in fact, that's a lot of what we want to accomplish with our videos over the course of the next couple weeks. I've found myself I feel buried with all of the anxiety and news and information about the coronavirus, and so something that I think we would like to do is provide sort of escapist content over the course of the next couple weeks or months. So that's why we're really going to try to get Atticus ready and just do some cruising, and then just try to show the pleasant, positive side of the cruising lifestyle for a little while. And so hopefully if you guys are ever feeling overwhelmed or stressed out, or like you just can't take another freaking update from the CDC, then you can try and escape to the islands of Bocas del Toro for a bit.
And if for some reason we can't get our fuel filter or filter fixed, we'll have a lot of DIYs on the horizon. Still got a lot of projects. Carlos Berlanga donated. Thanks so much. He says, great attitude about the new plans, turning lemons into lemonade. Looking forward to the cruising videos. Missed the hat, but happy about the donations for a great cause. And finally, we've got Stacy DiPaolo. Says, so glad you are safe. Hope all of your family is safe and healthy. Thanks, Stacy. Right back at you. And for all of you guys here joining us tonight, right back at you. Really hope your friends, loved ones, and coworkers are safe and healthy. And hope we all get through this together. And thanks for watching our video and joining us on this live stream. And thank you, Dave. It's probably so late in Ireland right now with the new time change. So thank you for moderating tonight. You're amazing.
Yep. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
And I also want to give a shout out to Hector Vega. He's been with us on the live chat, and he says, yeah, he's definitely overloaded with coronavirus. Hector, I don't know how we're going to do it, but we're going to figure out how to get over to your condo.
I know.
Because once we found out that your alcohol locker is fully stashed, that's it.
We're in.
I don't care what it takes. We're going to just blow through all the port captains that we need to be able to make our way to your condo.
We're on a mission to find Hector Vega.
Yeah.
All right. For those of you guys who have enjoyed being with us tonight and you don't want to miss another live stream, you can always text the word Atticus to the number 43506 on your cell phone to receive a free text notification about 2 hours before we go live, and that's a free service for anyone in the United States and I believe Canada. Also, we wanted to thank WeBoost. We use WeBoost for our cell signal booster, and that's why we're able to live stream from our boat. So thank you, WeBoost. You're amazing. We're excited to put your technology to good use once we get even more off-grid, and we'll keep you guys updated on how it works. Thanks everyone for joining us tonight.
Yep.
Anything else?
No, that's it. Oh yeah, and then Tim Leary, I want to give you a shout out too. Thanks for watching, buddy.
Oh, happy belated St. Patrick's Day, Dave.
Yeah. Do they celebrate St. Patrick's Day in Ireland?
I don't know.
Wait, let us know, Dave.
Actually, Dave said by the time St. Patty's was around, they were already in lockdown. So, yeah,
bummer.
Crazy. But Dave, we hope you're safe. Hope your parents are safe, and your family, everyone out there. And also, again, if you guys are trying to figure out a way to contribute to our doctors and healthcare providers out there trying to fight this disease, consider either sewing some face shields, and we link to Sailright's video down below to teach you how to do that.
Yeah, I mean, if you're bored doing your social distancing and stuff and you've got a sewing machine, it might be kind of a fun project to do, and it would really help some people out.
Yep, and we're going to donate all our proceeds tonight to direct relief, so we'll let you guys know how much we were able to raise tonight, and we'll post that on our Facebook page over the next couple of days. Other than that, we will see you guys next week on Thursday for our next video, and wish us luck that we get this fuel filter problem fixed and we can actually go offshore.
Yeah, or we might just get some foam sucked into the cylinder and have
light
to
the boat on fire.
Take the engine apart. That would be fun too. Yeah. So anyway, cross your fingers.
Yeah. Also, I don't see my mom's name here, but I didn't give her a shout out, and I'm assuming she's here. So hey, Mom, thanks for joining us. Same to Tommy, your parents.
Yeah. Stay safe, guys. Wash your hands. Don't cough on anybody. And we'll catch you guys next Thursday.
Yep. See you guys.